joined today by HB, another OG, but interestingly, HB is the first person to be on office hours twice.
Nice.
Besides team members, that that doesn't really count because like they have stuff to talk about. From a participant perspective, I'm really excited to have you today, HB. We're not going to do the interview. We've already done it. I'm kind of bummed. I love asking the questions. Has anything changed since we last talked? Do you want to revise any of those answers?
I think things are pretty much the same. I'm still here working from home, same job, same kind of stuff, but I'm happy to chat about it after.
Helicopters in space.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, that's pretty dope. That's super exciting. I do hope we get to talk a little bit about that because I imagine the folks will want to. So thanks again for joining. You have some stuff to talk about, some very interesting stuff, timely, very crypto-centric. And, why don't I just get out of the way? Why don't you take over?
Sure. Yeah. So hopefully everybody can see the slides that I just put together, my thoughts on a couple of slides so that I could address some of the questions that a bunch of people have been asking in the Rocket chat and then in the Slido earlier. So the thing I want to say first is I don't want any of this to seem like an ad, even though I am effectively selling something. So
yes.
If I ever step over any lines, I'm not trying to sell something. This was like definitely an experiment.
Yep.
And I want to share with everybody how the experiment went and
that's a good
thoughts and maybe a better way to do it.
Yeah, that's a great opener. And I'll just pile on and say, this is an interesting thought experiment and it's not a shill. I don't shill.
Yeah.
Well, I do. I guess I do. I shill Numerai, but definitely not shilling HB's prediction sets. It's an informative presentation. And you've disclosed this from the very beginning. And so I'm quite comfortable having you on to talk about this because I don't get the impression that you're shilling. So thank you for the disclosure, and I'll step back again. So
yeah, I got Anson's approval at the beginning. I
right.
DM'd him, but then I thought it'd be funny to surprise Richard, and Richard's reaction on Twitter was pretty entertaining too. Okay, so what have I been doing? When NFTs started to get really popular and everybody was talking about them a month ago, I realized that probably the easiest type of transaction to have in crypto is just selling an NFT. It's just a one-time transaction. Don't need to worry about knowing how to interact with a smart contract. You don't need to worry about a long-term relationship with other people. And so there's always been questions of Rocket Chat of how other people can stake on other people's submissions. Yeah. Mostly people that don't have any idea how to code, aren't as computer literate as most of the participants. So it's relatively straightforward though, if you own NMR, if you have ETH, to just buy an NFT, have a file be encoded in it, extract the file and just submit that to the website. So that was,
if I could just take 1 second, how did you come to the NFT as the medium of exchange? What were the other candidates that you considered?
Well, a lot of people have talked about, and there was an example, I can't remember who did it, but they created the stake, STAKE smart contract to stake or to submit for other people. Like that's always something we've talked about. I at least made a forum post a few weeks or like a couple months ago on the Compound forum to try to have them enable NMR as a lending token. So I didn't bother trying to think of other ways to sell individual submissions, but I have been thinking about other ways to bring the broader community in to leverage our submissions. Okay. So the NFT thing was just kind of, that was hot like a month ago. And,
yeah.
And
so
it is
a bit of opportunism and a bit of ease of use.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And it's market pricing. I like how you had a declining rate into the close kind of, because it institutes a bid race, if you will. So if you have two people vying for the same thing, the optimal solution is for them to pay their true price. Otherwise, they'll get outbid. So I thought that was pretty dope.
And I'll explain all the mechanics of that, or I'll just jump to that's a good segue to my first slide, which is effectively just the summary. So there's definitely a market for our predictions. There's people that are interested in staking on the predictions of participants that know what they're doing or seem to know what they're doing. I was able to raise basically an ETH in over 5 rounds, but the interesting thing was there were only 3 unique buyers. So it seems like it's all kind of that there are a lot of people that express interest on staking in other people's predictions on Rocket Chat and everything, but I don't think those people have all that much NMR. And so when they now are confronted with very high gas costs that are required to access those predictions, that kind of prices them out. So it really only made sense for whales to purchase. And so I was able to identify 400 NMR right now that's staked on my predictions. All of that is only from one buyer. So that buyer has been buying multiple 1 or 2 predictions each week, and now their combined stakes is 400 NMR. So it's pretty big.
Yeah, but the other thing is they could be doing some metamodel blending. Like that's the only one-to-one comparison that you're sure of, right? Because of the validation correlation.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the only one that I've been able to identify. I don't know. There are 2 other buyers that are still buying regularly, and I can't identify what they're doing with it. I have some guesses later.
Okay. Very interesting.
So it is like at least $50 worth of gas each time they want to buy. So that's a pretty big chunk. And so if you're not going to stake a couple hundred NMR, it doesn't really make sense to buy with that much gas.
Right.
What I definitely found is that the models that were highest on the leaderboard went first and for more. And that seems to be entirely the basis of their decision, that's really the only information they have. But it also doesn't seem like they're particularly interested in consistency, which I was kind of expecting, because they're only making 1 week bets. I mean, it lasts a month, but they only make this bet 1 week at a time. So they're not really interested in something that's going to have good performance over the course of a year. They're just gambling that the short-term performance is going to be good. So it kind of seems like they're funding what becomes a substitute for a leaderboard bonus. That's how I kind of
so like you can supplement basically what you're doing by selling an NFT attached to a submission file, and that's a proxy for a leaderboard bonus if and only if the decision criteria is based on your leaderboard rank, because then the bids will be higher the higher the rank, which is similar to how the leaderboard bonus was originally. All right, just giving a little extra color there. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it depends on the number of people willing to buy these submissions and how much they're planning to, how far down that leaderboard bonus might go. And I also mentioned this later, but I mean, I don't think my reach is particularly broad on social media or anything. So I'm sure there might be more people that are interested in this. And I have a proposal later for maybe ways to expand it if it's something that the whole community wants to get in on. So yeah, in terms of the profitability for the buyers, a lot of this has been lucky timing, because I mean the high variance models have performed really well right now, but on the other hand, even integration tests has performed ridiculously well. So I'll show you guys a little
feels bad, man,
to just buying or just staking on integration tests later too. Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time, and so there was a decent amount of luck. That was just the timing was right for the bet that the buyers took. So this is my little overall just emoji rating of different people's experiences. So my experience has been 2 smiles. So, and it's been profitable for me, and there's no risk.
True.
And if the buyers stay there, then it seems like it's likely to continue. So I haven't noticed any effect on my personal MMC, like just because somebody's duplicating it, the size of that stake hasn't really affected my MMC.
Right.
And 400 NMR is basically a negligible effect on the payout factor, from at least my perspective. So I think it's probably been 3 smiles from the buyer's perspective. So they've definitely been profitable. They're taking big risks. They don't know what goes into these models at all.
That's true.
Its position on the leaderboard.
Right.
But I would expect that on average, I think these models will do at least as well as integration tests, if not better. That's why I submit them. But on the other hand, they are my known high variance models that I use in different ways to put my big stakes. Like, they're not the models that I put the biggest stake on.
Do you know what the synonym is for high variance in the tournament?
No. What?
Degen.
Yeah. And so my stakes aren't that, I don't max out my stakes on them.
Right.
To not be degenerate. I use them in different ways to combine to make a portfolio, like we were talking about in the fireside chat. But for people that want to take a weekly bet, like they're the right ones to try to take a short-term bet on.
You almost need to have a high variance model because of the high transaction fees and the weekly cost, because without a sizable stake, then you need a high return to compensate for the difference. So this is where something like Sharp would be more useful than just core, because Sharp would indicate its capacity for risk, right? These high variance models don't have a Sharp necessarily greater than 1 without going and looking specifically. It's hard to say that, but from a buyer perspective, if I were to look at it, I would personally, I'd try to find something with a high Sharp. But with this week-to-week thing and potentially the ability to select different models, which I think you'll touch on a little bit too, because anyway, I won't get ahead of it. Yes, I did read the slides ahead of time. Sorry.
But yeah, you want a decent chance. If you're making a week-long bet, you want a decent chance of maxing out the 25%.
That's right.
At least a non-negligible chance of doing it. Yeah. Okay, so now the sad smiley faces. I think it's still negligible, but there's potentially a growing negative effect on other participants due to the payout factor being slightly increased by that. So that, I guess, that makes me feel 3 sad faces, because I don't want to do anything to hurt the community.
Well, that's why you're talking about it. So I think talking about it absolves you of that burden.
Okay, we'll see. Maybe my proposal will absolve you later. Okay, and then I also definitely think it's not helping Numerai. Like if I would be staking more on these particular models if I thought that they were the right thing for the meta model. I think that my stake reflects my confidence in these, but other people's stake has no bearing on the perceived confidence in these models. So I think they'll never have external staking levels that'll really influence the meta model, but they're definitely not helping.
Right.
So, yep. All right. So those are my initial thoughts. Yeah, I'll talk about, this is a slide on like the mechanics of actually selling the NFTs and what I've noticed if people are interested in copying me and how I've kind of set things up. So I chose to start by selling 4 models. That was just how many I felt I wanted to share and how many I thought had a decent chance of being bought, but I had no idea what a fair price was.
That's what the market's for. Woo!
Exactly. And I posted in the forum how I would calculate it, like based on what you thought the probability might be, but there's no way to really estimate the return week to week. I mean, you have an average, but there's a lot of variability, particularly with these models. So I set it, like you mentioned at the beginning, I set it with a declining rate. One reason why I was forced into that is because OpenSea has a 1 ETH reserve price. Because when you do a regular auction, they pay the gas. And so they require the value, they require it to get above 1 ETH. And I was pretty sure that no one was going to pay an ETH.
Well, that's interesting. So, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. So I was forced to do a fixed price auction because I didn't want to set the price. I did the declining price from what I thought was way too high to what I thought was probably the minimum anybody would reasonably pay based on the gas.
I think that was a really smart thing that you did, because it was smart in the sense that if there were multiple bidders, the true price would be achieved, because you would want another person to be able to scoop it, right? So at some point you're like, I gotta buy this thing or it's gonna get away from me. On the other hand, if you don't have competitive bidding, you're gonna get the minimum price.
Yep.
So did you get the minimum price on the first two, maybe?
The first week, 2 of the predictions sold for about 0.1 ETH, which was well above the minimum price.
Oh, okay.
That was like a day early at least. So it was kind of, I think no one bought until, I'll show you how I actually structure the files inside. But when I posted to OpenSea, originally there's just last week's submissions, which are too late to submit, but you could submit late if you wanted to see how the model performs and make sure that you got the right model. And then once the round opens, obviously the round doesn't open until Saturday. So once the round opens, I run it and put the new submissions in there, and no one bought until I had put the new submission files in there and announced on Twitter that the submission files were in there.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that was just the price declining to the point where they were willing to buy, or if they weren't sure if I would follow through, and me actually saying, I have now posted them.
Bit of both.
Publicly was the difference. Yeah.
Bit of both,
So
maybe.
either way, it hit that like 0.1 ETH price, and then the first buyer bought, which I think then kind of triggered the second buyer a little bit after. But then the last two, nobody bought until the end, till basically the end, like a few hours before.
Okay.
So it was kind of a mix, and people were clearly at that point. I think HB Falcon was like third on the leaderboard. They wanted them in order that they showed up on the leaderboard, so they fought over Falcon and then took the next one and then went a bit from there. And so yeah, there have only been 3 unique wallets that have purchased these almost every week. So now it's been 4 full weeks of selling everything. I think all but one has sold every week. Maybe there have been 3 total that didn't get bought. But there's definitely been musical chairs of people fighting for whatever like Falcon was in demand when it was on the top of the leaderboard. Now Clipper is higher. So now people are fighting for Clipper, and so they are kind of bouncing around. Also the price of ETH has changed a lot in the last month. Yeah. so the price has gone down a little bit, but people are still paying basically the same. Like I think 0.1 was like $200 or something. So people are still paying like $200 for whatever the most in demand one is. Who's getting it and when has been varying. I've also maybe been messing with them slightly because it's a straight line how the price decreases, and I kind of know where I want it to be about when people are going to buy, and I kind of know what my minimum is, and so I change depends on when I start it, how the price, what the slope of that line actually is.
Oh, I got it. The time is.
So they're never gonna. Yeah, they have to like predict in advance when it's going to hit their price target, and they might be asleep because I don't know who they are or where they are.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
So I haven't been keeping it consistent. So they might have, but I don't know. I haven't gotten any complaints.
No, not yet. Wait till 260 posts.
Oh yeah. We can look at that. I have that in my little collab later.
All right. All right.
So yeah, I haven't noticed any difference if I advertise or don't. I don't have a big reach, but it doesn't matter whether or not I post on Twitter or not.
Yeah, that was something that I was interested in because you're on a single marketplace. And so if they're finding you from that marketplace, you're only getting the people who are active in that marketplace. And your Twitter following, you say, isn't very high. And so again, it's a small pool. But you don't know if they're watching Rocket Chat or the forum. And so it's actually a much larger potential audience than you can trace. It would be nice if your buyers would just say hi. We're just
maybe I'll
curious.
put a little contact email address in the NFT next time.
We're just curious.
See if I do a little feedback survey.
Yeah.
But also I don't particularly. So I mean, part of the reason why I chose an NFT and not anything else is because I don't want to make any commitment to anybody. Like it, so partly. Also, that I like the fact that this is a final one-time transaction that I can stop doing this whenever I want, and I'm definitely not making guarantees.
It's a real option in that sense because you can just stop.
Yeah,
and the other person can too.
And they definitely might. They definitely might if they lose some money.
Yeah, let's see what 260 has for us.
Yeah, first day is looking dicey.
It's still early.
First day is not predictive.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I like I said before, I've only been able to identify one of the actual stakers based on exactly matching with my core day to day. So the other 2 people buying, I don't know what they're doing with it. Maybe they're ensembling it, like just averaging it with the example predictions. They're doing something more sophisticated, which implies that they have some modeling capability themselves, or at least some coding capability. So it's interesting that they're buying. Maybe they're just looking for inspiration or something. Yeah.
Or they're just trying to support the community, like the Wax Cat with their NFT NMR coin. Me and like 7 other people bought one of those, and I
tried twice and skimped on the gas, and now my MetaMask got locked up, and I have a bunch of cute transactions too, and I was too cheap on the transaction, so I can't even get the cancel in. So now I'm blocked.
Oh boy. Well, hopefully
But
that'll clear
I'll
for
just
you.
move a little ETH and buy one anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So it could be. I'm just saying it could be something like that where they're just trying to help adoption, and
Yep.
we don't know. And unless they tell us what's going on, it could be a number of things. So, but that's very, very interesting.
And an interesting thing that someone posted in the Rocket Chat yesterday, they were looking at the correlation of returns across the top 100. So they pointed out that Alpha Iota 3 and HP Falcon were the least correlated pair of top 100 models. So Alpha Iota could buy Falcon, or they could sell Alpha Iota 3 to me, average them together, and maybe make a little mini meta model.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I try to do across my predictions, across my models, that I try to make uncorrelated, but I'm having the same idea as myself. So if Alpha Iota has a completely different idea that is actually entirely uncorrelated, then that'd be cool to mix those ourselves. And you can do that with by selling predictions. All right. So these are just general thoughts. I'll just breeze through them. Yeah. So the staking cap, we're there, but it's not thoroughly shattered.
What do you define as thoroughly shattered? When are you going to cry?
When I get complaints from the community, then I will definitely stop.
Well, like what if it's shattered? So what's the payout factor that you're going to start crying at?
I mean, it's a pretty steep curve at the beginning. So I mean, I think if we got to, if the amount staked on my predictions dropped the payout factor by like a couple percent even, then I think that would be too much.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, like if it was dropping us like 3 or 4% down the payout curve, like from 99 to 96, which I think is a lot more than it currently has been, I would definitely start reconsidering. Yeah, so I mentioned the downside to Numerai. It's just they're low information stakes, so it doesn't help them. And then
I don't agree with you on that. I don't agree with you on that because there's some vetting that has to happen by the buyer. So they have to do some research before they go ahead and purchase your prediction file. That effort of vetting you and your predictions and the model that in particular they're bidding on actually is informative to Numerai, because they could just stake the example predictions. Those are free.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't agree with you. That's the bottom line.
That's a good point. And that's true. I didn't look. I mean, they might be staking a combination of my predictions and example predictions, and then the ratio.
Either way, they're saying that the research they've done, the risk they're taking, is better than the available options, and that is informative, and it does contribute to the man model in a positive way. So yeah, that's my market-based answer on that.
That's true, and I haven't always shared your optimism in the amount of research that speculators do.
Well,
but no,
that's fair.
They're thinking about it, but I think there are some degens, like you said. But no, I think there's
somewhere in the middle.
There's some value. Yeah. Yeah. So I mentioned my initial tweets about it got really good reviews. There are a lot of people excited about it and seemingly excited that it would do good things for NMR. Like, I mean, it was excitement from speculators about the capability to stake on other people's predictions. But then ultimately, because of the gas costs and everything, I only found 3 buyers.
So far.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, I'll probably keep going unless there are complaints.
I don't think you should stop. I don't think it is a hindrance. And if you can do it, anybody can do it, and therefore that is why you should not stop. If you're the only one capable of doing it and it started hurting people, I think then the complaints would be valid. But you're laying out the framework. I see no reason that you should have to stop. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
that's my hot take for the day.
All right, I think I have a better way to do it in a slide. So I mean, is there a better way? Smart contracts. I don't think there's too many people that know how to interact with a smart contract that can't also just submit the prediction file themselves, or just modify it at least a little bit.
We have a user bench who has actually created a smart contract to sell predictions. So
And
it could exist, with it's obviously being tested, and we'll see.
Yep. And I think it's still the gas cost to set it up is still going to be a pain.
Oh,
and then
sure.
it's just the for me personally, at least, the long-term commitment of having to, or I mean, I think it was built into the smart contract that you just get some burn if you don't submit or something like that. But still, I didn't want to sign up for anything beyond just 1 week of dragging and dropping files into
Sure.
my folder.
Yeah, to each their own. Especially when you have to monitor helicopters in space and stuff. Like,
yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
So, and then the NMR lending, yeah, that'd be nice. I think that's probably the best way for people with just a little bit of NMR to get in on it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, here's my proposal. So, what I think we should do as a community is, when we have a council of elders, use the multi-sig wallet to start an OpenSea account. Have on OpenSea, you can take a cut of anything sold in your storefront. So if people if the buyers of my NFTs right now wanted to resell it in the last day or so of the tournament, they could try to resell the NFT, keep the locked link for themselves, and sell it to somebody else, get some money back, and then I get a 5% cut of their reselling right now. But the Council of Elders could take a bigger cut in some semi-official store, and OpenSea should pretty soon allow it. They used to be able to allow it, but they took it away because of bugs. You can approve other wallets to create and sell NFTs in your storefront.
Okay.
So the Council of Elders could approve of other participants to sell NFTs in their storefront. So that those participants still control everything.
It's like an internal marketplace, and the commissions from this sanctioned but not really centralized location to find these things could fund the Council of Elders to some proportion going forward. That's actually a really interesting idea.
Exactly. And then the Council of Elders can then choose which can be submitted on their store, and then control they can then have some control over the total NMR that's speculated by people buying it. They can coordinate promotion and reaching a broader audience to find an actual price for these things, and then kind of advertise it to the broader community of, this is something that's now a capability that you can use your NMR for.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately the right way to do it if we want to consider continuing to do something like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, all of it to me to this point has been a thought experiment. I just laid out in my forum post, I laid out the framework of how it is beneficial, and how selling your prediction file could be a net positive, and kind of laid out that idea. And so that's why I pushed back against you, and you said that it doesn't benefit the metamodel, because I don't agree. The vetting part is how it helps. What I think could be problematic is if the Council of Elders selects which people can sell their prediction files, is kind of like an endorsement. And I'm not sure that's a good thing. I would rather it just be open to anybody who wants to try to sell. And I don't know, but I don't want to get too far into that because it's an early proposal, but I like it enough that I'm talking about it.
The Council of Elders doesn't even exist anymore. Or the Council of Elders doesn't even exist yet. But the different, or at least part of that's true, it would be like an endorsement. The endorsement comes with funding the Council of Elders, and alternatively, you can do like my storefront right now is just me, so anybody can still start their own storefront, but having a semi-official one that partly funds the council that's looking to grow the community. I mean, that could be a decent trade-off, even though it would be sort of like an endorsement.
And it's advertising too, because you benefit from the fact that it's basically a centralized location to find these things. So instead of having to search for it independently, so it has a network effect on its own. So that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that, at least a lot of people have expressed the point of the Council of Elders to be to kind of steward the value of NMR. And it does seem like the broader community of NMR holders is interested in some kind of capability like this. So enabling it could be part of their kind of job description.
I like it. Yep. Very cool.
Yeah. All right. I think that was it. So yeah. So all right, I'll just pop out of the slides, and before I'll just show, I have I can show people the storefront itself. I can show people what's kind of in the folders and how the mechanics work. And then I have like a little bit of code just to play around with to show how I figured out who's staking and how much and that kind of stuff. So, but I'll pause since I'm halfway through and we can like do questions and stuff too.
Yeah, let's do that. The Slido has a bunch of good questions. So 22 questions. Actually, this is the highest amount of Slido questions I've had in a very long time. So I love to see it. I love to see it. But yeah, you can go ahead and stop your screen share for now, if you could.
Sure.
I had 2 HBs in the screen, so let me fix that. Okay, so hi, I'm still here. I had the overlay on top there. So JRAI actually has the top question because it got upvoted 6 times. When asteroid mining?
Yeah, as soon as NMR is at like, let's say 5,000, then I'm taking over. I'm taking my stake out, and we're funding some asteroid mining missions.
Excellent. Sign me up, my friend. And it stays off. How much of the performance of your models is due to 1, using different machine learning algorithms, ensembling on the raw data, versus 2, feature engineering and training shenanigans? The word shenanigans shows up.
Yeah, I read that one. I wasn't sure what he meant by ensembling on the raw data.
Just not doing anything is how I interpret it. Taking the data as it is and no pre-processing. Like that's how I interpret it. So we'll roll with that.
Got it. So yeah, I think the thing that leads to the performance of the models that are on top of the leaderboard is not being afraid of variance. Because I mean, I treat all my models as like a portfolio. And so if you look, like, to give people, if you guys look at the comparison between like HB Orion, I think, and HB Falcon, like those are 2 models that I don't expect one to perform better than the other. And one of them has gotten 0 percentile a couple of times in the last few weeks, and the other gets 100th percentile. So I use them in different ways, but I'm only going to sell Falcon. I'm not going to sell Orion. No one's going to buy Orion. Yeah, so part of the way to get on the top of the leaderboard is just to accept that there's streakiness, and that the way to get up there is to accept that you're going to be at the bottom with that model for some regimes.
Yeah, come hang out in the 1200s with me, man. It's great down there.
I've got some down there for sure. But then you can see where I put the stake, and it's spread around like a portfolio, and concentrate on things that I think are more consistent.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
How about the next one's also Anastasiov? Actually, Anastasiov has a lot of questions, and I love to see it because it's great. He's got some in Twitch chat too that hopefully I can get to. What's your view on the Signals tournament? Are you planning to participate if you aren't already?
Yeah, I have no background in finance, so partly I just don't know my way around that as much as I've figured out my way around just a data set. Sure. A general data set. And I was participating in the Erasure tournament back when it was basically just giving free money. It was, if you were above a certain threshold, they just gave you a fraction of the stake basically. But I don't know how to do anything beyond the super simplistic stuff, and I don't know necessarily where to get the data. And so when the universe expanded, it just was, I haven't adapted my scripts to do that, but I would be interested in participating down the road. But
well, when you're done flying helicopters on Mars, you probably have more time, right? I know
Yeah.
you're not on that mission, but I have to keep teasing a little bit.
Yep.
I have to.
Yep. I might end up on the mission to return the samples that the rover is collecting from Mars.
Better model all the outcomes. 2 billion Monte Carlo simulations. Next question is, and you kind of answered it in your presentation, but we'll just take it again. How much work does it take to set up selling your predictions, and would you recommend it to others? I think you said it was about 30 minutes.
I timed myself this week, and now that I have things set up, it was exactly 30 minutes to click the buttons to put all the predictions on OpenSea. And the setup, I mean, I probably took like 2 hours or something originally to figure out how I was going to structure the folders and set up my marketplace and all that. And then the cost, to set up a storefront on OpenSea, it's one pretty high gas cost transaction.
Yeah.
But then after that, each time you create a new item, it's just a signature. So it doesn't cost any gas for each one after that. So it was only like, I think it was like 0.04, 0.05 ETH.
At the time.
Yeah. Which at least was paid off by selling like 1 or 2 predictions. And then from then on, it's
an investment. You know, it's a cost of setting up a business, you know, so you just have to accept that as part of the risk. I get that.
Yeah. And I took at least a small piece of the risk by showing that there's at least a buyer or two.
Yep.
So if we expand it or other people want to compete, then there's at least a buyer or two to siphon off of my 3.
Are you planning to continue posting your predictions via NFTs, and what events would make you consider stopping? You covered a little bit of that too, but you're going to continue, and if you impact the community too much because you're a white knight, you will consider stopping, although I say you should not. But that's my hot take of the day, and I'll probably
or if we get a better way.
I hear flack about it. That's okay.
They also were saying specifically NFTs, and I mean, if we end up getting a better way, and if Numerai implements the capability for people to actually stake on other people's predictions, I don't think anybody's going to buy an NFT either. So if there's a endorsed centralized way to do it, then that's probably going to take over.
In my forum post, I laid it out that I think that the team should implement it because of the benefit to the metamodel, but that's a perceived benefit and one that I have not empirically tested. So I think your proposal is as good as anything. So it's all up in the air at this point. We just don't know how best to execute this. But I thought I saw a question here, like, why not eBay? Is that when eBay is way down here, but I think it's a good time to bring that one up. Why not a traditional auction place?
I think the market overlaps with the people that use OpenSea and the people that, I mean, I don't know that going on eBay or some other traditional marketplace is going to be able to find the right buyers better than, and people that have NMR probably have ETH. So they're probably comfortable operating in the space.
And the other thing I was concerned about was the fact that, you could dispute. So you could have bad actors on eBay buy it, upload on time and stake, and then dispute the sale or whatever, and that would be problematic.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. Imagine a scenario where your NFT predictions are used by a large percentage of Numerai Classic. What do you think the impact on the meta model will be?
Well, I think it would be, on average, a little bit negative. And it depends on how big a fraction of stakers. I don't think it's ever going to be very big. And actually, in the code that I put in the slides, if you guys have a link to that, there's a little collab. And identifying who was staking on my predictions, I also identified who's staking on the example predictions. And I was kind of surprised that it was only, and then I summed up all their stakes. And it only, in round 255, it was only 2,600 NMR. So basically less than, like, about 1% of the cap at that time. And then it's increased because the example predictions have done well, but in 259, it's now 3,500-ish NMR. So even the example predictions, which are free, is only getting a bit less than 1% of the stakes.
Right.
So I don't think that people are going to be staking a huge amount on this. I was actually surprised it was that low.
I agree. I think we've tried to measure an estimate of how much was staked on example predictions, and I forget what it was at the time, but even now at the most current calculation, it's still far below what I expected. So
yeah,
to me, a 1%, even if it was 1% of the total meta model, that's not enough for me to be concerned, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I don't think it's probably not influencing the performance of the meta model all that much.
A little bit, 1%.
Yeah.
That's about how much, right? But it's the correlation with the example predictions staked on all those other models that I think matter more, because if you're 99.5% similar, you're basically just rerunning the example model. And in that case, I don't know how much is staked on it. Again, you're finding the 1-to-1 perfect match, which is still very interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so what have been your costs around selling the NFTs? So if it's $100 purchase, how much is the cost as a percentage? Like, can you
Yeah. So for my cost, it was just the one gas transaction. That was basically it. I
to set up
can
the
look
store?
at to set up the store. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Mhm.
And then I quickly used my free Dropbox space, considered paying for more Dropbox space, but I just moved over to Google Drive instead. So,
Yeah.
so there are no costs with hosting it or anything. For the buyers, let's see, I'm looking at my code now. I calculated their costs and their earnings. So like for round 256, they ended up paying about a third of the money that they paid, which was like $350 in gas. So like the total, or at least the buyer that identified, they paid $330-ish in total. 100 of that was gas and 200-ish went to me. So yeah. So like a third is going to the Ethereum miners currently.
Yeah. Ask the team how that feels.
Yeah.
Sorry,
we're
guys.
still waiting for 260 because those damn Ethereum miners.
Sorry, guys. Aventurine, when you mint, do you mint multiples of the same prediction files, or are they one for each round, each model?
So this was another one of those cases where I thought about a cool way to do something, and then the limitations on OpenSea forced me to do it one way. So I wanted to do just one, and then I thought it would be cool to encourage the buyers to resell so they could try to recoup their costs. And I mean, it's effectively what the NFT comes down to is a Dropbox or Google Drive link, so you can store the link and resell it, try to get some of your money back. So I didn't want there to be more than one. It turns out that OpenSea doesn't allow you to make more than one currently because of their gas costs.
Oh.
So they have a limitation on making it one. No one has tried to resell, partly because they wait until the end for the price to come down.
No time.
And then also because they would have to pay that initial gas cost one time
to
be allowed to sell. So they would end up like doubling their price the first time, at least, then try to hope that there's another buyer. So
the next question we've answered, I'm just going to read it so they know that I'm following. Do you find the same wallets and people are reoccurring purchases of the same models week by week? And you said yes, except recently there's a little flip-flop going on. And you presume it's based on rank, but no real way to know for sure. But yeah, it's a reasonable hypothesis. I don't object at its face value. Have you found that you have had issues with pricing with ETH gas prices so high? And have you thought about moving to other chains at all, such as Wax or Atomic something? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, if there are, so I mean, it depends on where the buyers are. I figured I would go with the most popular marketplace, even though I know that a third of whatever the price the buyers are willing to pay is going to gas. So I mean, I think that the buyers are waiting for the total cost to be whatever they're willing to pay. And effectively, I'm eating the third, but it's all risk-free for me anyway. They're the ones taking the gamble.
Yep. So the next one was when eBay, but I kind of waxed poetic on that one. Somebody is asking, want to join my predictions cartel? You can be a capo. That's cool.
Very nice. As long as we have a server farm in the mountains in some jungle somewhere, then
he's got to be able to talk to the satellites, folks. What's the best explanation? Oh, here we go. Space question. What's the best explanation for Oumuamua? I can't say it.
I don't remember how to pronounce it either, but it's an interstellar object.
I can't say it. I'm gonna try again. I'm like, no, it's a bad idea.
Cigar-shaped interstellar rock that we found. I think it was last year or something, and it isn't part of the solar system, but it flew reasonably close, and we observed it.
Space junk?
I don't think it's aliens. I think it's a rock.
Probably just a rock. Occam's razor.
Yeah, my wife was involved in a bunch of studies of how we could actually do a mission to something like that, because there are interstellar objects that come by, well, reasonably often. We've seen like 3 or something, so we kind of know the frequency. And they were proposing to kind of station little sentries
That makes sense.
ready to go. A few cheap small spacecraft that can quickly do some kind of slingshot maneuver to get out and intercept one of them to take a closer look.
That makes
They're
perfect
probably
sense.
interesting things.
Park it out there and just wait. Oh boy, here we go. So we're into the space stuff. Oh boy. Just look, I don't write the questions. I just ask them. Okay. What's the best explanation for the Navy UFO video?
Yeah, that I don't know. But I think it's more likely. I mean, radar is tough. I'm gonna go with sensor issues as the most likely explanation. But yeah, I don't know. If I wanted to put on a tinfoil hat, I think it's more likely that humans in the future develop time travel and want to check on ourselves in the past than random aliens deciding now is a cool time to visit Earth. I don't know. So if I just had to guess what the most likely thing is for two very unlikely but outlandish things, I would guess time travel is more likely than aliens coming to like look at planes.
Okay, I don't know. You're the space person. So we're all just fans. By the way,
no evidence for any of them.
Somebody says in Zoom chat, it's ʻOumuamua. ʻOumuamua. Yeah, ʻOumuamua. ʻOumuamua. You gotta say it fast. ʻOumuamua. I'm going with it.
That's the best pronunciation I've heard. Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so if you did find a monolith, would you actually tell us?
In a few of our offices, it actually lives in a cube most of the time. There's a big monolith that we have.
Cool.
Yeah, because we're going to Europa. It's signed in UV ink, but so like under black light, you can see all the signatures of all the people that have worked on the project. And in all of our Zoom meetings for the last year, there have been there's always an extra box for somebody in their house to set up a diorama of like the place at the end of 2001 with the monolith, with a little like monolith in it, like the hotel thing that he like gets really old and then sees the time baby and all that. So we've embraced it, but we're not listening to the aliens and we're going to Europe anyway.
Well, one of our friends, I think I saw our friend who does listen for the aliens is actually in Zoom. Our friend, Dr. Rudi Kuhn. Mm-hmm. Rudy. Are you there, Rudy?
I'm here.
Hi, Rudy.
Hey, what's up?
Are you willing to join us? How do
I? Yeah, I can do that.
I have to find you, friend. Where is he? I did something I didn't mean to do. Oh, there you are. I found you. Okay, one second. There he is. I've done it. I've got the space folks on at the same time. I did the thing. This was highly requested just to have you two to talk, but we still have questions, but I'm going to keep my friend Rudy on notice.
Yeah, Rudy, you're in South Africa, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Rudy, what do you do?
At the moment, I'm listening to awesome space talk.
Yes.
But for a day job, I am an astronomer. So I work on the biggest telescope in the Southern Hemisphere. It's in South Africa. So I'm one of the astronomers that get to use that telescope.
Nice. What, visible?
I have the best audience in the world. That's all I have to say. And I have the most interesting friends.
Visible or radio?
Yeah.
It's radio, correct?
So the telescope I use is the optical telescope. So it's the Southern African Large Telescope. It's optical.
Apologies.
Awesome.
And then the other one that we're busy constructing in South Africa and Australia is the SKA. So that's the Square Kilometer Array. And that's the biggest radio telescope that the world has ever built. So it's a big international collaboration. But we'll have telescopes, the core of it will be here in South Africa. And then we'll have like satellite telescopes all the way up in like Nigeria and Algeria and all the way in Madagascar and things like that. So you use basically the entire face of the Earth as a satellite dish.
Yep.
That's amazing.
The next one we'll build will be on the back of the moon, so we don't get the Earth's interference.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Let's take some more Slidos because we have a bunch. let's see, what are the most important data science tasks for the Perseverance mission?
Well, Perseverance I haven't worked on yet. I can talk about my mission though. I work on Europa Clipper, which is why, so all of my models are named after rockets and spacecraft that I like. So I work on Clipper, and I actually do a data science task that I actually got put on after Numerai. So I learned a lot of the stuff on Numerai and then apply it now to my work. But I look at the likelihood of being able to accomplish our science goals by simulating tens of thousands of attempts to complete our science with a bunch of faults injected for the instruments and spacecraft, and then process the statistics of where we're brittle and where we should add these types of observations, or where we should do a different type of flyby of Europa that might look like this to try to get that little observation like that.
We would call that sensitivity analysis in finance.
Yep.
So it's the same stuff, folks. I try to tell people that the domain knowledge isn't necessarily the most important part. It's being creative with data, being able to answer questions, being able to explain it to people who aren't domain experts as well. Thanks for reiterating that.
Being able to visualize or know how to make visualizations that other people can consume out of your complicated data is super important.
Indeed. Rudi, if you saw a monolith in space, would you tell us?
I'd have to verify that it was not something else first. There are how many thousands of different things that could look like a monolith out in space.
False positives, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that might take a couple of years.
So what I'm hearing is Rudi's volunteering to go on the rocket to go and touch the thing.
I'm hearing he already saw one, and he just has a little more work to do to confirm it.
Yeah. This is like Contact. Now they're going to build the rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are engineers at?
All right. Another question on your NFT. Yesterday, you proposed buying your NFT for ensembling. Can you think of an anonymous way to ensemble models to check their combined performance? A community-made model, perhaps?
I think if the community or the Council of Elders set up a store, then maybe they could be a buyer also and have some Council of Elders model, a mini meta model, try their own meta model ideas that are independent from the teams. I don't know, but we wouldn't have any test data to compare to. It would just be purely wait for the live performance and see.
Question: Arrow-wise K-fold validation was a big aha moment for me when developing successful models. What was your biggest breakthrough with developing successful models?
Arrow-wise what validation?
Arrow-wise K-fold validation was their big aha, but what's your big aha moment in the tournament?
That's a good question. I think it was, so I've always been striving to create uncorrelated models and various ideas of how to slice things up in different ways to model different aspects of the data set. I think has been interesting, and it takes like months, if not years, to actually figure out if your models are going to be uncorrelated. Like you have to sit there and be patient through a whole lot of live data to actually get an understanding of your model.
I feel like everybody says that when I interview them, to be patient. I just wonder if people listen.
It's hard.
It's really
definitely hard to sit there and have a model not perform or perform well and then fall off or wait for it to bounce up and never bounce up. And so I don't know. I think the aha moments were when I come up with ideas of how to slice things up to make what I think will be uncorrelated things, but then actually in validation look uncorrelated, and realizing just how long it takes to actually assess things.
Yeah, it's a long game. You just have to be very patient. Can you live entirely out of your Numerai models? I think they mean, can you derive a sufficient income that you don't need a real job? I think that's what this question is getting at. If yes, how did you get to that stage, and can you provide high-level advice?
I mean, I don't. And
well, clearly, because you're like doing the space stuff.
If NMR keeps it up, then maybe we all will. I mean, NMR alone is doing great. I don't know. I mean, I think it's designed to be. I think the team has always encouraged us to embrace the Numerai on the weekends philosophy.
Yes.
Like automate it, set it and forget it. I mean, but they don't want us to be like poking and prodding things all the time because they want consistency. So partly that's not really the point of Numerai.
Did y'all hear that?
Hear that
out there?
Be full-time tinkers.
Keep it simple and don't tweak too much. I don't think people listen, but we try. Yeah, I think if I'll just add a little hot take there. I don't think I'd like to have a real job, but I also don't know how soon that could happen. And it just if you want that to happen, we have to increase adoption, increase confidence of people so that they can stake more, and make the community great again. It already is great, but I'm just riffing. I don't know. If I had a real job like you do that you're passionate about, if I would quit to, just model machine learning stuff. I don't know. Most people I interview are workaholics, and I just have a feeling that they just stay working.
I would maybe bonus. Work on some kind of mission of my own. I mean, we talked about asteroid mining, and if eventually Numerai could then pay for that, that's what I would do. Nice. As much as I love the science the Clipper is going to return, it's like 3,000 of us working on data we're going to get back in 2031.
3,000? And really? Yeah. I didn't know the team was so big.
Yeah, it's like 1,000 at JPL, 500 or 600 at APL, Johns Hopkins's lab, and then 1,000 across contractors.
Wow,
that's like the total. Yeah,
yep. That's cool.
It's going to be no idea. $4-ish billion over the course of the mission, so it's a big thing.
Pennies. No, in the grand scheme of things, I don't care what it costs.
Yeah,
I just want y'all to do a good job.
That's spread over 2015 to 2035, so 4 billion years over 20 years to hopefully determine whether or not there's life in our solar system besides on Earth.
Liz in Twitch chat says Numerai spawns the Federation. So
I'm definitely down.
Have you explored other cheaper NFT platforms?
Oh, no, not yet.
Because it's the biggest marketplace, like you said. I was just reading the question. Yeah. Could you open any past round file?
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I did want to show that. I'm going to share again.
Okay. Let me find that when it pops up. Here, I got to drag it in for our Twitch folks. 1 second. Okay.
All right. So only a couple minutes left, but when I create one, so I'll just show you, I have the marketplace set up. When I create one, I sign, and then I made a logo that I spent about 10 minutes thinking about, a name, the link, I just put in the link to my model so people can look at the performance. I wrote up a little description basically saying no guarantees, don't complain if this loses money.
This is not investment advice.
Yeah, that I just update every week. And then this is the key here. This is unlockable content. And you can just put text in here. So literally all I do is I just put a Dropbox link.
Gotcha.
And now it's Google Docs. But creating a folder for here, I just do the shareable link and plop that in there. These I set up one folder for each model. I put a little random string of characters just to make it seem secure, although the link has hashed and completely unrelated to the actual folder name. So it's just to give people a sense of confidence that people can't guess the link, even though they can't. And then inside, so this was for round 257. So at the beginning of the week, I put in after the close of round 256, I put in the submission file from 256 and the diagnostics and the new logo. And then people, if they have an open model spot, if they bought it, they can submit 256, check that they get the same diagnostics, and just see that it's not entirely a scam. They've gotten something.
Awesome.
And then Saturday, once the model's done, I just drag and drop the submission file in here, screenshot the diagnostics again for the new one. And then if people really wanted to, they could check that the test data has the same results, so they could see that the same model was used or have a guess the same model was used, and then
if they choose to,
they should
yeah.
get the same diagnostics. So I put all those things in there to give people some confidence in what they're buying.
Well, again, that's that vetting
yeah,
process. I'm telling you, that's a benefit. So
yeah,
I'm going to stick with that. I like it. Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and that's all there is.
There was a question in Zoom chat. Wen Dyson Sphere. I don't know what that is.
It's when we surround the sun with solar power generating equipment and live on what's an inside out sphere around the sun, utilizing all of its energy. And I think we should do it as soon as we can.
I'm just going to, yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about. And at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. So, yeah.
The sun is enough energy for us to use for a very long time.
Indeed.
Our civilization will be fine with just one sun for a huge amount of expansion. And the only, so before I get off the soapbox, the only thing I will say is that when people get into arguments on Twitter about the energy usage of crypto and the energy usage of XYZ as we shouldn't be doing this because it uses too much energy, that pisses me off so much, because utilizing energy should never be a bad thing. Just creating the energy in the correct way is obviously important, but actually just using energy is how we make human progress, is like how we accomplish things. So using energy should never be considered to be a negative. Utilizing polluting energy, creating the energy via things that destroy the earth, is the negative.
It's like Wen fusion.
Exactly.
I'm long fusion. I think that's where I don't know anything, but like I just love reading about fusion and all the developments that have been going on lately, because to me that's the next one.
But we have the most amazing fusion reactor ever sitting right there,
well,
producing more fusion energy than we possibly need, and we have the capability of turning it into energy that we can use.
Well, there's something
so,
something 3 planets away from the sun, I think. Is that the right number? I think it's 3. And there's like this helicopter thing on it. What was the mood like at the office when that was going on?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of helicopters on the 3rd rock from the sun.
What is
we
Mars
have a lot
again?
of helicopters here. Mars is the 4th.
4th. See, this is why I stick with finance, and I defer to my friends who are experts. The fact checking is immediate. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So we've never flown a helicopter above 50,000 feet on the Earth, but sea level on Mars is the equivalent of 1,000 or 100,000 feet above what is the equivalent of sea level here.
Wow.
So the rotors are this big, carbon fiber. The payload is this big and weighs 3 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, it's done 2 flights now, and it works great.
Amazing. And it landed back on the rover and all that stuff, and success.
The rover dropped it off. It's on its own. It's completely self-sufficient.
Wow,
so just surviving the night alone, because Mars night is cold and it's a tiny little thing, was an accomplishment in itself. And then they had to do a software update. They did 1 3-meter hop, little spin, and then back down. And then this morning they did a 5-meter hop, 5-meter translation, and then back down. And it's going to do a 50-meter flight there and back in another couple of days.
That's amazing.
And the rover is watching it and taking video the whole time, which is really cool too.
And Rudy's watching it from his telescope at night, just making sure that there's no shenanigans going on. Is it true they put a piece of the Wright brothers plane on the helicopter?
Yeah.
That is just amazing. I love stuff like that. I didn't know what the material was. That was going to be my next question. I didn't know if it was a piece of wood or something. So like that's just
a little bit of the canvas right underneath the solar panel. There's a little solar panel on top, and then the big rotors.
It's just amazing. So that's all the Slido questions. We had a little bit of space stuff. I'll try to keep up on the Zoom. I just want to check because Richard was unmuted for a little bit. Richard, did you want to say something, or did he leave already? I think he may have bounced. Well, I tried. What'd you say, NJ?
I said he's bounced.
Yeah. Okay, no worries. I was also stalling a little bit, see if we had any more space questions. Seeing none. Aha, here comes one. Super useless question. This is actually a good question. How come you use the Hofbräu brewery logo? Just because the initials?
Yeah. They're my initials, and I have a mug from the Hofbräu from my great grandfather, whose initials were also HB.
Oh, cool.
So it sits on my shelf, and so I've had it since I was a baby.
I would do that too. I think it's pretty dope.
And also has a little crown. And
cool. Very cool. Very cool. When Stargate?
I don't know. After fusion.
Yeah, probably. After fusion, yeah. Joe has a question for Rudi, if Rudi doesn't mind taking one. What does Rudi think? Oh gosh, I can't do it again. ʻOumuamua is. What do you think it is, Rudi?
ʻOumuamua.
Oumuamua.
So it was just
An
a
effort
rock.
was made. Just a rock.
Yeah, I think it's just a rock. It's just a really odd shaped rock that came from a really odd direction. But space is big. There's lots of stuff. You'll find one or two of these coming through your solar system once every 100 years or so. So
I would
it was
imagine.
just a rock.
Just
Yeah.
a rock. I think again, I think Occam's razor applies here. What's the latest big news in space? I'll ask both of you that as a closing question.
The contract that SpaceX just got to land people back on the moon in a couple of years is pretty huge. The Starship that they've been testing in Texas, just this massive, I mean, like the top of the Saturn V size thing that they've been hopping up to 10 kilometers and then crashing every time they've tried to land it so far.
They'll get it right.
They're gonna get it right soon, and then they're gonna take us to the moon in another few years. That was kind of the biggest news in the last couple of weeks.
We'll probably rent space from them anyway so that they can send up our drilling rig.
Oh yeah. Starship's gonna be the thing.
How about you, Rudi? What's your biggest take? What's the latest?
So we're just coming back to that Dyson Sphere. Maybe a couple of months ago, there's a star that was dimming in a very, very strange way, and people had thought that it might be an alien race busy building a Dyson Sphere. So you get these weird, like, solar panels reflecting the sunlight in a weird way, and then blocking the sunlight when the structure moves in front of the star, and then past it again. So that was a big investigation and things. And eventually, I think it settled on, this is a family of comets in a very big, wide orbit around the star that is probably blocking it. But there was a lot of discussion about, is this a Dyson Sphere in production and that kind of stuff. So I think that was an exciting one. And then I think just after that is when Oumuamua arrived. And so people were really
losing their minds.
Aliens was all the rage again for a while.
What's the latest science fiction either of you have ingested?
My wife hadn't watched Doctor Who yet,
I'm
forcing her through it.
I haven't watched the latest season of The Expanse.
Oh, I love The Expanse. I'm a huge fan.
I also love that, but yeah, I haven't watched the latest season yet, so I'm trying to get to that.
It's the most innovative sci-fi that I've seen. Like, it just, a lot of the concepts I just have to talk about The Expanse for a second. Then NJ, I promise I'll let you in. But like, it just blows my mind because they have such new and interesting ways of presenting all this stuff. Sorry, I digress. NJ?
Just wanted to know if either of you have watched Dark.
Oh, no, not yet. I've heard good things.
Oh man, you have to watch it. I watched it last year and just inhaled it. And it's like amazing cinematography. It's like beautiful to watch. And the casting is very good because it kind of shows people at different ages, and the cast matching is very, very good as well. And it's in German. Rudi, you might find it funny because like so much of it's like very familiar, like similar to Afrikaans. And so I get like excited every time I kind of understand what they're saying. But it's very fun science fictions, like time travel, a lot of weird ideas and stuff, but then also like a lot of weird personal stories. So it's very engrossing. And it's like one of the few things that I can actually pay attention to for a long time because it's so enthralling. So I just started rewatching it like a week ago.
Nice.
So if you haven't checked it out, I would suggest that.
All right.
HB says he's got a hop, so I'm going to let him have a closing word, and then I guess we can wrap it. Actually, that's a good close. So HB, why don't you take us out?
Sorry, meeting time. I put the link to the slides. I'll put it in Rocket Chat too. There's a little collab link in there if anybody wants to play with some code on there also. And I hope the NFT thing was interesting. And people can feel free to copy how I've set it up or innovate on it, and maybe we'll do something as a community together with whatever the Council of Elders decides.
HB, thank you so much for talking to us about your experiment with NFTs and basically plotting the whole thing out since you started. You didn't have to do that, and I'm very grateful that you did. And thank you again for hopping on and telling us more about it. I enjoyed our time together today, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And as I like to say, may the burn be in your favor. We'll see you next time. Adios, everybody.
NumeriCon soon. See you at NumeriCon soon.